Welcome, everyone. Have you ever worked with someone who was just, universally loved by management but an absolute nightmare to their actual team? Well, today we're embarking on a pretty fascinating explainer. We're going to look at one of the most dangerous, yet hardest to spot predators lurking in the modern workplace, the female organizational psychopath. Relying on the comprehensive research of Dr. Fiona Girkin, we're going to unpack exactly how this individual operates, the sheer damage she leaves in her wake, and most importantly, how you can actually survive her.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover 4 main sections. First, the Medusa at work. Second, spotting the 12 behaviors. Third, the 6 phases of infiltration. And finally, Section 4, the fallout and survival.
So, Section 1. The Medusa at work. Clever deception. To really understand this type of predator, we have to realize she absolutely doesn't use brute force. Dr. Girkin frames it perfectly with this idea. Imagine a woman who seems charming and unexpectedly vulnerable, resident of Medusa before her curse. But once you're close, her facade falls away. It's such a brilliant, high-stakes metaphor. Just like making eye contact with Medusa was lethal, trusting this type of colleague can totally freeze your emotions, shatter your confidence, and disrupt your entire career. She seems so hypnotic and self-assured at first, but the moment she's deeply involved, that beautiful facade completely drops. Now, before we go any further, what exactly do we mean by organizational psychopath? Well, it's really important to clarify that this is not a clinical diagnosis. Actually, think of it more as a highly useful descriptive label for someone who has core psychopathic traits, things like superficial charm, deep manipulation, and literally zero empathy. But the key here is that she thrives in the workplace without ever actually crossing the line into criminal behavior. We're using this definition today to help you and your organizations mitigate risks, definitely not to play armchair psychiatrists.
There's also a really vital difference in how these traits present across genders. Think of the male organizational psychopath as kind of like an overt lion, right? He's yelling in meetings, throwing his weight around to dominate. But the female presentation? She's the puppeteer. She operates almost entirely covertly. She uses relational aggression, she manufactures fake empathy, and she basically pulls the strings behind the scenes. It's a total Jekyll and Hyde duality, which makes her incredibly hard to catch until the damage is already done.
Moving on to Section 2, spotting the 12 behaviors. So, to protect yourself, you need to know exactly what to look for. And keep in mind, these behaviors exist on a spectrum. The more traits you see, the bigger the danger. First, let's look at the charming facade. Number 1, she's engaging. She gives this incredible first impression and builds quick alliances. 2, she's impenetrable, meaning she remains perfectly calm in emergencies, mainly just to make everyone else look frantic. But underneath, she's deceptive, a totally convincing liar with a sincere tone who will gaslight you the second she's caught. She's exploitative, effortlessly stealing credit for your work. She's completely egocentric, perfectly willing to weaponize your personal information. And above all, number 6, she is remorseless. To her, your failure is just a stepping stone, and she feels absolutely no shame about it. But as you get closer to her, the cold reality sets in. Number 7, her emotions are shallow. She can totally fake tears for sympathy, but there's no real depth there. 8, she's detached and secretly mocks vulnerability in others. 9, she's deeply irresponsible. She'll make huge promises, but casually let her team pick up all the slack. 10, when cornered, she is wildly deflective. She uses elaborate excuses and always claims to be the victim. Suddenly, your missed deadline is somehow a personal emotional attack on her. 11, she is relationally aggressive, meaning she isolates targets through really sweet-sounding gossip. And finally, 12, she is fiercely retaliatory. If you cross her or complain, the punishment she dishes out is completely disproportionate to whatever she perceived as the slight. Let's move to Section 3, 6 phases of infiltration, the sleeper cell. Okay, so how does this sleeper cell actually dismantle a team from the inside out? It turns out her infiltration follows a remarkably consistent, almost predictable pattern across literally all industries. The timeline looks like this. Phase 1 is the false narrative, followed by Phase 2, her debut performance. Then she becomes the Trojan Horse, shifts into Jekyll and Hyde, pushes the whole team into fight or flight, and finally becomes the undeniable bad apple. Understanding this timeline is essentially your superpower, because it gives you the ability to spot her early.
It all starts with the setup in phases 1 and 2. Look, we've all tweaked a resume a little bit, but hers is an absolute masterpiece of deception. Qualifications are wildly overstated and past titles are inflated. She plants these seeds of suitability just perfectly. Then comes the interview, which is her debut performance. She is composed, she's approachable, and she uses this brilliant mix of confidence and fake humility. And if HR notices some missing references, don't worry, she has a charming, highly strategic excuse ready to go. Almost every time, this flawless performance lands her the job.
Once she's actually hired, she enters phase 3, which is best described as the Trojan Horse. She arrives super confident and outwardly appears to be this massively valuable, enthusiastic addition to the team. But here's the catch. She isn't actually there to deliver results yet. She's conducting reconnaissance. It's like a giant puzzle to her. She's carefully mapping the workplace to find out who holds the real power, who's got influence, who happens to be vulnerable, and most importantly, who can be useful to her agenda.
That reconnaissance leads directly into phase 4, the Jekyll and Hyde phase. This is where informal factions begin to form, and her true colors finally start to show. The mask begins to slip. You start seeing the subtle bullying, the blatant credit stealing, the highly strategic gossip. But here is the trick, and it's a clever one. She maintains a completely cooperative, solution-focused facade for upper management. So while the team on the ground is suffering, those in power usually remain entirely blind to her toxicity.
And this inevitably leads to phases 5 and 6, the breaking point. Tension literally fills the air and psychological safety totally evaporates. If you have ever been in a workplace where you felt completely isolated, just exhausted, and totally unsure of who you could even trust, you know exactly what this feels like. Turnover skyrockets. Eventually, the situation devolves into open chaos, productivity plummets, the culture completely fractures, and management is finally forced to step in and take some kind of disciplinary action against this bad apple. Which brings us to our final part, Section 4, the fallout and survival.
Sadly, by the time management realizes what's happening, significant damage is already done. Dr. Girkin identifies 4 really common outcomes once this predator has infiltrated a team. First, there's a mass exodus driven by completely destroyed job satisfaction. Second, a few brave individuals might actually lodge formal complaints. Third, and this one is incredibly tough, the victim is often labeled as the problem because of the psychopath's intense, behind-the-scenes manipulation. And fourth, this is the most shocking reality, the organizational psychopath often gets promoted. Yeah, you heard that right. Organizations frequently move her upwards or sideways just to avoid legal risks and the headache of having to actually deal with her.
Now, if you do decide to lodge a complaint, you have got to be prepared for how she turns the tables. She relies on a very specific psychological tactic originally described by Jennifer Freyd. It's known as DARVO. Step 1, she will deny the allegations completely. Step 2, she will ruthlessly attack your credibility. And step 3, she will reverse the roles of victim and offender. Suddenly, she positions herself as the real victim, claiming emotional harm from you. It's a completely dizzying strategy that leaves victims feeling incredibly exposed.
So what is your actual survival diet here? Listen closely, because early detection is absolutely everything. Document absolutely everything. Every strange encounter, every stolen idea, every passive-aggressive email. Do not rely on HR to save you if you don't have a paper trail. Review your company's policies and seek professional support outside of that toxic bubble. Thorough documentation and early informed action are truly your best shields against her covert relational aggression.
As we wrap up, I want to leave you with a rather profound question to reflect on regarding your own workplace boundaries. When that mask finally slips and the toxicity really begins to spread through your office, do you stay and confront the behavior, fighting for your team? Or do you make the incredibly difficult but perhaps necessary choice to leave and protect your own well-being? It is a heavy, critical decision. But armed with this knowledge, it's a decision you can now make with your eyes wide open.